So good morning, you guys. I was watching this video on the internet, and I know this has been like maybe over a month old. And what it shows is that this father is buying groceries for their children. And what happened is that, to explain the context, is that his girlfriend or his like wife, it's a separated couple. Like she was expecting like pizzas and wings just to feed the kids, and then he shows up with like a bunch of groceries, and she's like really pissed off with him because he's kind of like, that's not what I asked for, really. And like, what the fuck, really, like, I don't get what I want, really. And I also can understand two sides, that maybe she's like mad because then she has to cook, or maybe she has to cook and then she's dealing with like really picky kids, or she's not disciplining the kids and being like, hey, you know what, you can't just be eating unhealthy, you got to eat the healthy stuff. Like the older generation where you're forced to eat your vegetables, and you pray to God if you get to go to get fast food. Or in older generations, I know some people would slap their kids for asking for fast food, saying, you know what, we're on a budget, really. So I have a bunch of different things to say about the video. Like, I totally understand when people expect something and then they get something else, really. And that's happened to me many times in my life. Like, I remember like sometimes when I would get like an allowance, my dad would say, okay, after a while he wants me to give him back all the money that he gave me so he can put it in the college fund. Or sometimes when I've had a birthday or other things, he would take my money and then he'd be like, it's going to college. Or um, or I know like one time I worked a few summer jobs. My dad would take all my money and then he'd be like, "Oh, well, it's going to college, really." So I totally understand, like, when people want you to be responsible with your money, and I also get when people want you to be responsible and, okay, you get more from homemade meals instead of eating out, really. And I also get, dealing with disappointment, which is that you expect one thing to get another, or I'm trying to, like, I'm thinking of a situation in my life, but but there has been times in my life where, with family or with other people think that they'll just do things for your own good, really, and you feel kind of swerved. So it's one of those things that, it happens in life. But I think I'm overall more mad with the woman for a couple of reasons. That number one is, just being ungrateful, and that seems to be like a pattern we see a lot in like a lot of these videos, or with what happens nowadays. Like, the man's supposed to cook, the man's supposed to provide. The man, when there's a divorce, or when they need, like, when there is a divorce, the man's supposed to expect to pay for the kids. The man's expected to, like, buy dinners and do other things as well for the kids, really. So when you don't do what the woman wants, really, people get pissy and ungrateful. That's not every situation. That is some situations, but that's the gender role. Like, the men are there to give the money and not think about how it's being used. So if you give a person, like, so like, is in this situation, it comes down to food. The food that she wants, not the food that he wants to give them. And that's not good, really, because it's like, it's disrespectful, but it's also like, again, when you have children, you have to think about nutrition. So you want to feed them unhealthy food, that's something. And then it's also bad because it also teaches, kids to, for good guy and bad guy, really, relationships. Like, you're saying, oh, well, your father wants to be responsible, your father wants you to, have, like, liver and onions or kale salad, and with raisins instead of, like, pizza that you want, really. So it just teaches, it can also teach a bad message to the children of, like, oh, well, your dad is the hard ass one, or your dad's like the jerk, really, because we want to have fun, or we want to do something nice, really, but we're gonna, like, have a meal that we just don't want to have, really. And that's not good, because you got to be grateful of, for what you got, really. But I also understand, for the father, it's not good because, again, he probably cares more about his kids. Like, he's like, I'm not playing games. I'm not gonna buy guys, like, $50-$60 worth of food, for the pizza. I'm gonna give you guys food for the week, really, because in the end of the day, it's my money paying for my family. Even though we're separated. So I totally am on the father for this. I know, like, one time I was kind of mad with my father, and I've been mad with him for a couple of things. I remember, like, one time, like, I wanted him to go to McDonald's for me, but he made me, like, a sandwich, and it was like, like, ham, cheese with apple on it. And I remember, like, the apple being all bruised, and, like, the cheese was expired and the ham was expired. it was expired, and I remember like getting mad because I'm like, well, he's just like throwing things together really. And who the hell puts apple on a cheese sandwich? That's kind of stupid. But the point of it was that I do kind of understand, like as an adult, really, that it's like, okay, yeah, he's not gonna go out of his way to like give me what I want. Really, I remember like one time, um, he made me like grilled chicken for dinner, and I was like, um, I went to school from like 5 a.m. all the way to 6 p.m. My dad forced me to do track. There was a track meet, forced to do that. My dad forced me to walk the dog, be like, no video games because you got to eat your dinner. And I wanted to throw it in the trash really because I was kind of like, we've had this 3 or 4 days in a row. Really, I hate grilled chicken. It tastes like I'm shoving a towel in my mouth, But I felt really, really upset because I was like, like again, I didn't get what I want really, and it's like, okay, well, you know what? Again, we're having grilled chicken every single day, really, So it's like, um, I remember like back talking to my dad, and he kind of gave me a pass on that, but it was also just like, again, it is that similar situation where sometimes people forget that when you have a breadwinner, when you are a child, and you have a father, or when you are the mother and you're not working really, whoever is paying for the child, they're in charge of what the child eats really, and fortunately these are situations where people want their kids to eat healthy, and that's very, very important because nutrition is important. And also too, like I've said, then it could also raise children to have bad habits. Like for example, if you give them pizza and wings, then what's going to happen is that they may like scream or cry, or they may throw their good dinners in the trash because they're like, oh well, you know what, because I'm always going to pizza and wings whenever I want to, or whenever mom wants to, or I love mom more because she feeds me whatever I want, but dad's always trying to like force vegetables on my plate and other things like that. So it can teach resentment towards people who actually care about your health longer term. I also feel that it's a way to pin people against each other. Unfortunately, that happens in a lot of relationships where people are like, oh well, your dad wants you to, instead of like going to summer camp, they want you to have a tutor and learn business skills. Like always like, oh well, like he's the killjoy, he always wants you to work and study and do the right thing really. Oh well, I don't want to work and study. Oh well, I don't want to eat healthy, because that always seems to be a letdown. I also would hope that they have a conversation with their kids, being like, hey, this is why we're doing this, because this is healthier stuff, that's unhealthy, and then that's one good dinner, that's $60 where you can spend that over a period of a week really. So I also hope that this turns into a video where they can teach the children the importance of saving money, but also being grateful and also valuing healthier food. But it's probably not really. It's probably, either a joke video or just a video about a woman just being vindictive, and also the gender roles that, the gender role of the men are supposed to work, the men are supposed to give money to the kids, the men are supposed to give money to the women, just like when you watch the Jetsons with how, I think Jane Jetson, his wife, doesn't take the $5, doesn't take the bills, she takes the whole wallet really. But ultimately, men have to stand up and be like, hey, no, we're not going to tolerate this shit. If I have a child really, and I'm feeding them, and I want them to eat healthy, I want them to eat under a budget really, that's going to happen really. I'm not going to be paying for wings or whatever. It's just like with welfare checks. Like, if somebody got food stamps, or somebody like had got money from the government, that's to feed you. That's not to be like, oh well, I'm going to spend like a few days at the club, I'm going to sell my food stamps for cigarettes. No, it's supposed to be like, hey, you know what, we're supposed to feed you, you're supposed to eat a healthy amount of food until you can find a job to pay for yourself. So it's unfortunate that this is a video showing ungratefulness, and it's also a black couple, so it adds to the stereotype of black women being irresponsible mothers, and just really trashing their men really. And then people wonder why a lot of, in the black culture, there's a lot of men who date women of other races, because this video reinforces negative stereotypes. So each time you do a video like this, it forces negative stereotypes. But also, we'll say in Asian culture, there's issues of man and woman violence. In white culture, there's issues of spoiled, entitled children. So every race has its own stigmas and stereotypes and things to work on. So yeah, it's unfortunate that videos like this exist, showing that people can be ungrateful and disrespectful as well.